Literally the bottom fell out of our lives pretty fast, within like 6 months. It was, it went from life is good to life is okay to life is bad.
All right, welcome. David, it's so good to have you with us on the Real Estate Level Up podcast today. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm excited to be here. I feel like I finally made the big time. Like, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but no, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I was excited when I found out you had time to come join us. It's an honor to have you with us. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Tell everyone who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do, brother.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I listen to some of these podcasts and people have these amazing stories. And sometimes I'm like, I wish I had an amazing story. I'm a pretty regular guy. I'm a full-time investor based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up in Boston, pretty normal, middle class, kind of family upbringing. Was a Boy Scout, went to Catholic church and Catholic school, and got a degree in criminal justice of all things at University of Massachusetts. And funny thing, people always like, well, why did you do that? Or do you ever use your degree? And I'm like, nope, absolutely not, except maybe when dealing with my tenants. Every so often, we get a little dosage of craziness with them. But after I graduated from college, my parents moved to West Palm Beach or Delray Beach, Florida, and I followed them and went down there and started working in retail for hardware stores, a big hardware chain in Florida called Scotty's Hardware Stores, and did that for a bunch of years. One day I was in the airport and stumbled across a book. The most cliche thing ever, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like so many of our friends. And that sort of started that journey for me into real estate, because at the end of the book, what does Kiyosaki say? He says, go find a local real estate group or meetup or RIA at the time. And that's what I did, and got immersed in this whole new world of real estate and flipping and all the different, things that are kind of go around that, all the different niches and strategies. And that's sort of where I got started back in the mid 2000s, a million years ago, learning to flip houses and learning what buying subject to was and pre-foreclosures and all of those things. And life was really good until it wasn't, until about late 2008, early 2009. And, when things got bad in Florida, they got really bad. I was still working, selling building materials at 84 Lumber. And my wife was a purchasing manager for a custom home builder. And like literally the bottom fell out of our lives pretty fast, within like 6 months. It was, went from life is okay, life is good to life is okay to life is bad fairly quickly. So that's why when, the last year or so, when people are online going, the sky is falling, we're in this huge recession, it's the end of the world, it was not the end of the world. The two things were not even comparable. Andrew, I'll tell you, the last house that I bought in Deltona, Florida, I bought this cute little 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick house. Wasn't even on a corner, but I think I bought it. It was a probate deal for $97,000. An identical house, just a different color, 1 block over, 2 blocks down, had just sold for $214,000. So I'm like, by any stretch of the imagination, this is a deal, right?
Yeah.
So I think I bought it, closed on it in like July. And back then I was younger and skinnier and more energy. So I was fixing up the house myself and, cabinets and scraping popcorn and tile, all the things to do a rehab. And I finished it up in, I think, mid-November. So I called my realtor. I'm like, hey, I want to get this house sold, because I knew we were leaving Florida. We were going to go someplace else where the market would be better. And she's like, oh, honey, just wait. Let's just wait till January and the market will be better. Nobody buys houses during the holidays. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. By this time I'd flipped 20 houses or so. So it was good. Well, January comes around and she rolls into the house and she says, you did a great job. I'm like, I know. She said, it looks really good. I know. Because I'm so smart. And I said, what do you think we can sell this for? And back then, this is 2009, right? So she whips out the binder, right, with like laminated pages and all this. And she starts showing me, and I'm like, slowly, I just feel my heart going, wah, wah, wah. And she's like, I think we could realistically sell this for like 145, maybe 147.
Oh.
And I said, hold on. 1 block over, 2 blocks down. 214. She's like, yeah, that was 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, well, and then I did another thing that new investors do, right? Because I'm, again, so smart at the time. But my house is better.
Of course.
But my house is remodeled. Those are junky foreclosures, right? Like, my house is better. And she's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to matter. So I'm like, okay, well, I knew I needed the money, right? Like, we flip houses to make money. I was going to relocate on this. And I said, well, and I want you to know, I thought I was the most magnanimous MFer that has ever walked the face of the earth when I said, I'll do 154. And she's like, all right, whatever. She's like, I'm a listing agent. You know, she didn't tell me that, but she's like, just sign here. I'm going to put my sign in the yard and I'm out of here, right? You do whatever you want, big boy. And so this is January, right? I listed it at 154. Not a call for 4 weeks, like nothing. I'm like, oh, this is new. This is different. So I call her back. I'm like, oh, geez, you know, I really need to get this thing sold. I've told my company that I'm leaving and I'm moving to Chattanooga. I'm like, 147? She's like, yeah, okay. I'm like, do you think that'll do it? She's like, no. I'm like, well, it's got to do it. It's got to do it. Like, it's got to be it, right? So she's like, all right, I'll lower the price. Like, now in February, still no showings, like 1 or 2 calls. I'm like, oh my God. So now, like, the longer this goes, the more panic starts to set in. That's why when people are complaining, my house didn't sell in the first 3 days, I'm like, take it easy, Trigger. This is a normal market there, son. So now we're into March and I'm like, oh my God, like, I've got to get this thing done. So I'm like, all right. She said 145. I'll go 142. I just need to get this thing sold. So I said, do you think that will do it? And she's like, well, no. I'm like, well, what number do you think is the freaking number? She's like, oh, probably like if you really wanted to get it done, 125.
Oh.
I'm like, what? Like, so this is what a falling market is, to kind of give everybody listening or watching an example. I want you to picture a fat kid chasing a tennis ball down the hill, right? You can't catch that. The prices were dropping so fast, you couldn't get in front of them. Like, nothing that you could do. What was the number a month ago is not the number today. It's not going to be, you know, the number tomorrow. It's just a rapidly dropping number. And to get in front of it, like back in January, I would have had to have been at 135, right? Like to have guaranteed a sale. So that's what it's like in a falling market with a recession. It's really bad. Like, it's really, really bad. And at some point, you just have to bite the bullet and just say, okay, F it, I'm just going to ride this thing out because everything is cyclical, right? Like, at some point it will come back up. And so, you know, luckily, because I'd spent almost a decade at that point in the real estate groups, I'm like, well, I know there's other options. Let me go out, make up some bandit signs and say, you know, owner will finance, lease option, $5,000 down. And luckily, you know, within, 45 days or something, we found a lease option buyer who had $5,000 cash. And that's what we moved to Chattanooga on. You know, me, wow. My wife, my brother who was going to come into business with us, our 2 boys and 3 fat dogs. We loaded up a U-Haul and we went to Chattanooga with $5,000 to our name. So divided by 5 people. So when I tell people we started, like, if this was a number for broke, we did not even have enough money to be considered broke. You know, it was feast or famine. It was that whole burn the boats thing when you're, the Vikings land on the shore and they burn their boats so they can't retreat. Terrible idea. People all the time be like, yeah, that's what I should do. I'm like, don't do that. What I did was stupid. It was irresponsible. I'm a husband and a father and 3 dogs. And like, don't do the thing that I did. It was dumb. Luckily, it worked out for me because we were just too dumb to quit. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time. But, we got to Chattanooga and we knew that we had to make this work. Right. Like, interestingly enough, like, one of the things I'm known for is wholesaling over 1,500 houses. I tried wholesaling in Florida and it didn't work, which is really weird, right? People laugh when I tell them that, but it was because I had a great job. I was making, almost 6 figures way back then. Plus we were flipping like 1 to 2 houses a year. Plus my wife had a good job. Like, we didn't have that need to make it work. So like, when we didn't get the greatest calls, we didn't probably treat them with the respect that they deserved. And, we just didn't it wasn't life or death. Like literally, when we landed in Chattanooga with no money, we had to get to work pretty fast and figure it out. So that's just a little bit about us. Got really good at guerrilla marketing, like cheap marketing, driving for dollars, bandit signs. Like we got really good at that stuff. I tell people now, like we didn't have all the toys that you guys have today, right? There's no launch control, no investor lift, no privy, prop stream, like none of that existed. We had list source back then, and I think Core Logic or something, some previous version of prop stream. And, we hand wrote a lot of letters. Chris Chico, we did his postcard. We did all those things. And, we just got really good at it and being really targeted with our marketing. And because we were kind of running our own acquisitions and stuff, deals would come in and, we started wholesaling pretty quick. We did over 40 deals that first year.
Wow.
And then we started recognizing that, hey, some of these properties we can buy on owner financing with no money down. So we started accumulating a really big portfolio of rental properties. We had over 100 at one point. And then as the market shifted a little bit, we started doing a bunch of rehabs. And then, over time, we took on some new partners and really scaled it out to where we were wholesaling on a pretty nationwide basis. So that's a little short version of how we got started.
That's awesome. So that's in the time I've known you, of course. I've only known you the last, 3 or 4 years now? Not real long. And so it's interesting hearing the perspective and what happened prior to that. Because sometimes I think it's easy for us to go online and see somebody who's killing it, who's done 1,500 wholesales, and just see that part of the life and not see the part of moving to Chattanooga on $5,000 with 5 people and 3 dogs.
Dude, terrible. Like the dumbest thing. I wouldn't ever tell anybody they should do that, right? Because sometimes people hear these stories and they're like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and go do this. I'm like, man, like, don't do that. Like, I could have stayed in Florida and figured it out. And why those things happen, I don't know, man. My superpower, if I have any, is I'm really focused. That's the one thing I can do. I can lock in on something and remove all distractions. But yeah, it wasn't a smart thing to do. It was terribly irresponsible as a father and a husband to, put my family through that, and thank God it worked. And real estate's, for those of you that are listening and you're unsure, like definitely do real estate. It has given me a life that, I'll be honest, I don't know that I deserve. Like it's been really good, but it's hard work. Like you said, people do see they see the Rolexes and the fancy cars and all that stuff. They don't always see, and this is something people don't talk about enough. The days standing in the basement of a rental property, sump pumping out, 18 inches of sewage water that had backed up in this old rock basement, right?
Well, you're taking me back to 2014 now.
Yeah, but nobody comes out of the womb. Most people don't come out of the womb as a successful real estate investor, right?
Right.
This business has some challenges, and you have to learn to overcome them. Because everybody runs our business different. So even, while I do, espouse and tell people like you should get a coach or a mentor, somebody that can help you, overcome some of the easy hurdles, you're just going to have to put in the time in your business and learn the things that you don't know, right? Because this is different. And, I've been in the room with the top 50 wholesalers in the country, and they do it 52 different ways, right? Like everybody runs their business just a little different. So there's no real blueprint where you can go, oh, I'm going to do it exactly the way David did it, or exactly the way Andrew did it, or we run successful businesses, but we run them completely different at this point.
Yeah, that's a real good point too. Finding that baseline and then finding one's niche out of that baseline. That's important. Well, good. So you moved past all that. You survived, actually thrived through 09, 10, and so on. So where did you, I know when we met, you do a lot of dispo, I know you do education, I know you got a lot of things in the works. Where was that progression from 2009 till now?
Yeah, very accidental, to be honest with you. When it's funny, and I just saw him this weekend at Family, or last weekend we were there, my very first real coach or mentor, that I went through his wholesaling class, weirdly enough, and I could not, or a week-long boot camp, and never wholesaled a house when I was in Florida. We stayed close, and after I got established here in Chattanooga, he had invited me to be one of his coaches. I'm like, okay, like I'd love to do that. That's a huge honor, right, to be asked to be a coach. So I did a little bit of that in the 2010, 2011, 2012, but it just didn't feel like a great fit at the time because I had to. There was no Zoom, right? There was none of this. To go to people's offices, you had to travel a lot, and that took a lot away from my business. But beyond that, I just got a reputation for being really great at dispo and teaching. Just teaching it, not like formally, but just working and kind of consulting with some of the bigger companies. And Tim Mai, our little friend, I was at one of the Heroes events, and he grabbed me and yanked me in the, or I don't know if it was Heroes or maybe Ricardo's event, one of those, but yanks me in the side room, and he's like, okay, take out your phone. We're going to make this post. You've been there, right? If I was to do, so he's like, just send it and we're going to see what happens. And that was how I ended up doing my very first live, coaching group was thanks to Tim. So, I sort of fell backwards into it a little bit. I do enjoy coaching. And here's why. I am incredibly introverted, and people laugh when I say that, because I am. Like, this is all the energy I've got to when we're done, man, I'm going to go sit in my office and be like, oh, shit. I need like 10 minutes to like regroup. But so anyways, when I started, I kind of skipped over this part of the story with Kiyosaki, the book, right? Go find a local RIA. So I went online, and at the time I had this big boxy computer. It was like web crawler. Like, I'm so old. I was doing this when Google didn't exist, right? So I'm like, local real estate group, Orlando, and this website pops up. And it was a guy who's still a friend of mine, Todd Hutchinson, out of Orlando, and he was a wholesaler. Like, I had researched enough to realize what a wholesaler was, but I go to his resource page, and he's like, oh, go to CFRI, Central Florida Real Estate Investors.net. I'm like, okay, that's really weird that this wholesaler is going to teach other people how to be an investor, but okay. So I get all the dates, and it says the first Wednesday of every month at the Bumby Theater in downtown Orlando is where they meet. So I'm like, okay, great. So I remember it was July, and I'll tell you why I remember it was July. So I tell my wife, I'm like, I think I worked in Sanford or somewhere at the time. Like, I'm going to Orlando. I'm going to go to this meeting on Wednesday after work. And she's like, all right, do whatever you do, right? We had flipped a couple houses on our own at this point. So, man, I drive down there, and I pull into this parking lot, and dude, there's 400 cars. Like, it's the biggest thing ever. Like, I'm not mentally or emotionally prepared for this. And everybody's got a car wrap, right? Like, we buy houses, hard money, soft money, IRA lending, Inspectigator, like all of this stuff. And I'm driving through this parking lot going, holy shit, where am I going to park? And I'm getting more and more anxious. Like, the more I drive, like, I'm not driving fast. Like, I'm just driving through looking for a parking place. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking, and I'm out the other side, and I go home. Too scared to go in. Wow. 100% too scared. So now I'm pissed though, right? Like, I remember I didn't go in August. I did go in September because my birthday's it was like the day before, right after my birthday. So now, like, I'm mad for 60 days that I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. And so now I'm like, this time I'm driving down there, and I'm like white freaking knuckled. You've been like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to positive self-talk. I'm going to go down there and do this thing. So I did. I pulled in and walked up there, gave him my $10 or whatever it was, and went into the event. But I do remember distinctly, what it was like to be like the guy in the back corner of the room, afraid to go talk to anybody. And, weirdly now I've got some status as the people want to talk to for some reason. So I do remember that. And I try really hard to, when I have time to do events like that, or be someplace or talk, and try to give back just as much as I can, because I remember that feeling. Like, at least for me, it was excruciating. I was so afraid to go, talk to you or Ron or, Tim Mai or, I would never do that. Right. It still gives me anxiety. And imagine going to something like family where they're all there, Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I want to get over in the corner someplace and be out of the way. So that's one of the reasons I enjoy coaching is really helping people, try to be better.
That's awesome. And I think that's a really good point to make, is because some people listening to this who haven't done a deal yet or who've just got started, that is such a frightening place to be, or can be. The person in the corner who feels that way. I remember feeling that way. And it's amazing when you can begin to develop that confidence, and equally importantly in speeding up that process is guys in your position, being the type of person who walks over and introduces the new person. And that's very special. What would you say when it comes to the beginner, the new person looking to get their deal started? You told them don't move to Chattanooga on $5,000. What should they do?
Don't do that. It's a very fine line to walk, because I want to say get a little bit of education, right? If we're talking about wholesaling, and we sort of bounced around this a little bit, there's lots of ways to be in real estate, right? You don't have to be a wholesaler. You don't have to be a rehabber. You don't have to be a landlord, right? There's lots of ways to do it. It's like being a doctor, right? You can be the eye doctor, the ear doctor, the toe doctor, the nose doctor, the butt doctor, whatever, right? Lots of ways to do real estate too. I could be storage units, landlord, condo conversion, land development, right? First off, pick a strategy that fits your personality, right? So while I'm introverted, I also can talk too much. So, being in a part of the business where we talk to people is good for me, right? Conversely, which is weird because I run the biggest transactions company in the country, paperwork is not a personal strength of mine, right? If you were to see my desk right now, it's a shithole. Like, it's just paper from one side to the other. The only time it gets clean is when the people come in to clean the office on the weekends. So, find a part of the business that resonates with you and that you enjoy, because it's going to be hard work. Like, anybody who tells you it's not going to be hard is lying to you. They're trying to sell you something. It's going to be hard work, but the rewards are amazing. Like, again, living a life, and I've been to places in the world. You were just in Italy. I've been to China and see the penguins in, Argentina, and all over the place. So it's by far, it's worth it. Like, every bit of the blood, sweat, and tears you'll put into it will be worth it. But, yeah, I don't even remember what the question was now. That's also a product of being old. I can get started and forget where I started because I've gone off on some side tangents. So
it's funny. No, I think that's something too. You mentioned the running the largest transaction business. Tell us a little bit more about your business today, because I think that's something maybe a lot of people listening to this don't yet know about you.
Sure. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to scaling your company a little bit, right? To grow from a hustle or, being an owner operator in your business to having something bigger and having something beyond that scale, right? That's the most overused term in our business, is I want to scale up. I want to do all these things. Well, first off, decide what that means, because that's going to mean different things to everybody. Maybe you should scale, maybe you shouldn't, but there are definitely things that you should outsource. And there was a point in my business where, and from talking to lots of entrepreneurs and hustlers, and, we've all got this crazy mindset that allows us to jump out of the plane and build a parachute on the way down. Like, I thought I had to do everything. Like, literally, countless times in my brain, my brother said, we got to hire this person, or we got to get a VA, or no, man. Nobody can do it as good as me. I'm the best. We all have this weird narcissism, probably tick going in our brain where nobody's as good as us. And part of that is true, right? There are things that we are freaking amazing at, but we're not great at everything. There are certain parts of our business where, like, we freaking thrive. Like, I can sell properties like no tomorrow to, like, anybody. Like, if you're even in the market, I'm going to sell you something. So to answer that, how it came about is, finally there got to be a point where we just had too many deals and I had to hire some dispo people. Great. Well, then now I'm trying to run the dispo side of my business because I had a partner doing acquisitions. So I'm running the dispo people and I'm doing all of the transactions and kind of just muddling through, and wasn't going well. And I hired this transaction coordinator. Her name is Heather. And she came in and, like, just sat in the corner and just did her thing. And all of a sudden, man, like, my business is growing, and I couldn't figure out, like, what the ingredient was that it changed. And then I'm in my bank account. I'm like, well, what is this $28,000 from? It says closing. So I come in, I talk to Heather. Oddly enough, her desk is right here where I'm standing at this podcast room. It used to be the transactions desk office. And I'd be like, hey, what is this 28,000? She's like, oh, dummy, that's the deal from like 3.5 weeks ago that you sold. Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. Like, I didn't have to spend all the time finding a transactions company in Sedona, California, and seeing if they would do this transaction and calling my seller and calling my buyer and doing all of these things. And I realized, wow, like now I'm able to spend my time doing the parts of the business that I enjoy, right? Because nobody likes transactions. Again, I own the biggest company in the country and I don't like doing it. But I did figure out that it was something that investors all across the country needed. So when we really thought about this, when it really popped off for me was during COVID, right? Lots of my friends who run very big companies had, they laid some people off. So I was getting a lot of requests to, one, help with dispo, and two, hey man, you've got 3 coordinators. Can you help do some deals for me until I hire somebody? I'm like, yeah, like friends, Corey Geary, Nick Perry, like the guys that I'm really tight with. I'm like, yeah, sure. And we're doing a little bit of that. And I was down at a big investor lift cartel boss summit in Tulum. And I'm like, guys, I'm thinking about opening a transaction coordination company. And they're like, well, that's stupid. I'm like, I don't think it is. And I remember Corey Geary, Corey, he's like, man, that's the dumbest thing ever. Nobody wants to do that. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's going to work. I think there's a need for it in the marketplace. I know none of us like to do it. I think to be able to outsource it to somebody who could do it better and cheaper is a good idea. And I think I'm going to try it. He's like, well, that's dumb, but sign me up because I hate doing it too. Thank you very much. So Corey was actually one of our first clients, and we took on all of his students. And he's really responsible for there's that kickstart of getting our business off the ground. Yeah. And it's grown and grown and grown. And we just ran some numbers the other day. We just passed $126 million in closed transactions for our clients, and like almost $22 million in assignment fees in the last really 18 months. So yeah, man, what we do is, our goal is to help our clients do more deals and make more money. And the way that we do that is the same way that Heather did it for me was, once I have something under contract, it would go to her. Once you have something under contract, it goes to our team. And, we'll call Mrs. Smith and, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm working with Andrew on your deal over at 123 Main Street. Mrs. Smith, I'm going to be your point of contact from here all the way to closing. You're out. You That's go incredible. Get your next deal, go do the thing you want to do, right? Go talk to more people, go sell your deal, go buy another deal, whatever you want to do. Mrs. Smith, I need to start to collect some information that we're going to need for the title company. Do you have just a couple minutes, right? And then depending upon the deal, novation, wholesale, sub-2, creative, wrap, land, whatever it is, and her particular situation, Mr. Smith died, bankruptcy, foreclosure, whatever it is, after doing 2,500 deals, in the last less than 2 years, like we know what the title company is going to need. So what we can do is, one, we can take all of that off your plate. Two, we can spin the wheel of your business faster because you're just focusing on the thing that you want to do. Like nobody got into this business to learn what a monument of title is, right? Nobody got in here to figure out, where do I find lost death certificates? And what if that family trust document is lost? What do we do now, right? Like, you go focus on doing the cool stuff, the fun stuff. Our team, and we have 16 coordinators in-house in our office, like you can see on the other side of this wall. And that's all they do all day long is help investors all over the country, close their deals, coordinate closings, and send out a lot of wires to get a lot of people paid.
That's awesome. Well, that brings me to our last couple of questions, David. And again, I'm so grateful that you have joined us here today and offered insight and inspiration. That's what we love to do on the podcast here. Number one, what is the way that someone can connect with you if they want to check out you coordinating their transactions and all the services that your team offers?
Yeah, our company, and I think you'll probably have a link that you can drop in here below, but yeah, easyreiclosings.com, the letter E, letter Z, REI closings with an S.com. The best way to get a hold of me, I'm very active on Instagram like you. I post a ton of videos and content, just day in the life of a real estate investor, right? Like things that we come up against, and me speaking at events or just talking about all kinds of different topics of wholesaling and marketing and lead gen and acquisitions and dispositions. Of course, we'll do a lot of stuff where we'll go out to our rentals and here's what a property looks like when a tenant moves out, and here's the process for getting all that done. But we do all that on Instagram. So the easy way to get me is David Olds, REI. And I should pop up. Got the little blue check mark, so it's pretty easy to find. But yeah, that's a great way to, if you want to get in touch with me. I don't have a VA or anybody that answers those. I usually sit at about 10 o'clock at night and try to go through and answer as many of them as I can. But yeah, we'd love to chat with you and see if there's something we could do to help you grow your business.
That's awesome. And someone who is newer to the business and they're going, oh my gosh, you've grown to the way that you have, and they're looking at that, and some people that they see it as their reality in the future, and some are going, crap, how do I ever get there? What word of inspiration or actionables do you give to them?
Yeah, and a great question. Here's what I tell people: try to get around like-minded people as much as you can, right? Like I was involved in this for my wife. She wanted to do it, this multi-level marketing group years and years and years ago. And while I actually loved the product because it was travel, but I didn't like that type of business. But their mindset training was amazing. And they always used to call it being around the campfire, right? Being around the fire with other like-minded people. And that's the thing, that's the advice I would give to people, right? Again, this is a hard business, right? If you're trying to do this on your own and sitting at your kitchen table with your laptop out, trying to watch some YouTube videos and maybe reading a book and trying to figure this out, like it's going to be hard, right? You're going to feel like you're a man or a woman alone on an island and nobody else is struggling the way you're struggling, because chances are your family's not going to support you because they don't understand. Like, first off, they don't understand the type of real estate we're doing. They're going to tell you it's a scam and all these crazy things. And, even bigger, like what makes entrepreneurs and hustlers and that whole thing is like our brains are a little bit broken. Like I'm not saying anything about the way these brains work is right? Like I've had people come in my office and like, I want to be just like you. And I'm like, you absolutely don't. This brain, not right? So they're not going to understand the focus and the desire that you have to go out and work at something for 60 days and not get paid because you can build something bigger, right? Like all of us entrepreneurs, like there's a thing in us that drives us to do what we do. So all that being said, like join a local real estate group, right? At a minimum, get active in some great Facebook groups. If there's no group in your neighborhood or in your town, start one. Go to meetup.com and go to Panera Bread or Einstein and say, hey, man, I'm going to meet for coffee every Wednesday from 8 to 9 and talk about real estate. And you will be amazed the people that are out there that want to talk about real estate and do some deals. And, get around those people that are taking action, because what happens is your belief system will grow. When you see somebody else, closing a deal, you're like, oh my God, if they can do it, I can do that. And, real estate's an interesting industry, man. I've talked to people from other like roofing businesses and whatever, medical device sales, and they don't have this camaraderie and helpful collaborative thing like real estate does. It's really interesting because it's the industry that I've spent the most time in. So I just assume everybody's like this. But, dude, when you go to a meetup or a mastermind or one of these things, like people legitimately want to help you. Yeah. There is really just a big sense of abundance in our industry that I'm so proud of. And we've definitely had some leaders, Pace and Jameel, that have really, pushed that to the forefront. But yeah, so that would be my advice to new people. I know that was a very long answer, is get around other people that are doing the business, because I don't want you to feel like, I'm the only one doing this and this doesn't work. And then you quit, right? And you miss out on, all the opportunities to help people and to make a lot of money.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much, David. It's always good being with you in person when we're hanging out, and we don't get to do it often enough, but virtually too. And it's exciting to see the success. You're always got new and exciting things going when I see you, and I know again that
Dude,
inspiration
I
I've
follow
gained.
everything you're doing, man, and you're just absolutely on like this rocket ship out there, you know, in our industry and speaking and doing so many cool things. So I'm fascinated by everything you do, and it definitely inspires me to go out there and work a little bit harder every day.
Well, thank you, brother. Thanks again for being with us. You're an inspiration to many. Keep being awesome, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks so much for watching. And if you liked that video, hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any more. Comment below what you got out of it. It'll help with the algorithm so we can continue to spread incredible information to awesome entrepreneurs just like you and spread the message. Thanks for all the support.